Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is Sean. This report is for the 26th of March. And coming off the Friday sell-off with all the news that was taking place, we came back even further and dipped to the ABM green and literally supported right off that ABM green, which was right by a couple of the intraday algos that we were following anyway. And if we look at the low right there at 89.50, and if we see that the DO slow down there in green is 27.90, so 2 ticks. Well, it came all the way back up to the ABM yellow, and that's about where we're at right now, in between the 76% and the ABM yellow. Still with almost a full reset of the shakeout, and still within fairly weak readings, except for now we have the potential for short-term buyers in steel to start popping up. Let me increase the spacing on this one so that we can get a little closer up on the view. Just go ahead and lift that up, and you can see starting to turn, and that's the earliest sign. Of course, then if we go to a 50K, that would be the next one, where you would see that we've been in a series of buildings with P2s and X's, and actually the Opus 2 bot down at the bottom of that. And right at the 50K algo, right around that 2803, worth noting. Likewise, from a NASDAQ standpoint, it's had the complete reset as well, and now building up also from the steel. But there's still a little bit of a ways to go. You'd see that orange come down some more, and that would certainly generate a little bit more strength from the move. Plus, the NASDAQ really hasn't filled back all the positive extremes, even to the most secondary recent one. So that creates a little pause in your mind, at least for the future going forward, because you know we're gonna get there. The fact that the S&P filled them certainly was good, and that again, we're playing with that whole Brit exit stuff, whether Theresa May is going to be resigning in exchange for a deal or something, all sorts of machinations. But the pullback into Euro range, we're still right within the normalized range that we've expected, so nothing's really changed there. The fact that it's been a little weaker has caused some problems for the S&P because of the earnings valuation that comes from foreign exchange. And of course, this caused a little pop-up of gold with oil, and the potential that we're really not seeing a stopping of the economy. So I think that this is if you see gold rising, it's an indication that no, this bearish thought that the economy has stopped isn't much of a factor. We'll see. Not hard. We'll pretty much get readings like we do here. We were down in the sell. It was coming through from the gap up the pre-market, and we were starting to talk right when we were getting this buy configuration. Popped in through there, then created a beautiful short snake, this with the crossover, and then right at that zero, and I was mentioning how I love that, and sure enough, boom, we came all the way down, and then we started building successive higher red DOCs coming off this. Any of this, yes, could be bought. I prefer getting it down towards the lows. It didn't do a whole lot for quite some time until finally getting over the 23% with the close. And then that's where it took off, and you also ended up with secondary signals once it got to the 50%. And then likewise, so you had a couple of these situations where you would have the steel move above cyan and come below, but you were still in rising red, you were still in rising green in those particular cases. And it wasn't until we got over here we ended up with that dip, green coming down at the same time. We were rolling right over. And again, this is a little bit tougher one because you're still above zero. You could wait for another bar or two. And this is often what happens. It'll start down and then it gets to that 76. I just prefer a lot of times getting in a little early where I know I'm near the 100% marker. And that way, when it does this little plane, because sometimes it can go 4, 5, 6, 7 bars, right around that 76%. This case took the immediate dive to the 50. Was out for part of it. The interesting thing about that was at the dip below the red line, it immediately had gone and actually made a lower low on the higher extreme. So it wasn't completely necessary that it had to come back down to this, but we really weren't seeing strong turnaround here from GOC red standpoint. In fact, right at the key point, we ended up with a nice spider right there of the cyan to green, and that usually was an indication of lower. For me, this one was more significant, this one less, simply because you didn't get the steel reset from underneath red. And here, I'm definitely more cautious once this crosses over, because the potential for that to move all the way back to the 100% is fairly decent. So the fact that once it's spidered, that lets you know that, no, okay, this case is not going to risk reward in this one. It only dropped to the 22, but then it came right back up, and we reached the 50 again, but this time even lower GOC red than well, when we were at that same peak level over here. It then proceeded to break down a little bit further, and with no orange dips below until we came all the way across over here, started to produce the X's, and then that takes us into where we're at right now. If I can slide over. Let's see if it will do that for me. There we go. Increase the size, and you can see we've been in a nice gold run, and once it plateaued right here, it was still continuing, and then broke up to another wave off the bounce and the shakeout. And that's currently where we're at. We're getting some decent resets with the shakeout and up near the highs. So what's going to be interesting for this one is if we start to get a turn back around with a spider or something right here. Now we have green over cyan and steel coming up from the bottom, but if that starts to turn around at this peak on lower shakeout, that could be another opportunity for decent short setup, because we have, well, positive extremes going all the way back to the 04 range, and that one's already been filled coming back over here. Matched it right there, so that's clean. What I thought was interesting is that every time we came to the key, algos again responds, and we're seeing just pretty clean action as far as that goes, and I think fairly decent ranges given the lack of any significant news or something like that that would be driving volatility. So it's been pretty good. As always, though, I will update you with any new details and any charts that warrant special attention. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.